Warning: these mistakes may make the barking worse. If you're a dog parent who's been trying to get your dog to stop barking but can't, you might be making some of these mistakes. You've likely been embarrassed by your dog, gotten confused about why nothing is working to stop the barking, and felt judged by other people. The reason for this is because you're focusing on stopping the barking and have never considered why your dog is barking. And in order to fix it, I bet you've tried any or all of these. Yelling at your dog for barking, correcting or punishing your dog for barking, saying no or no bark to your dog, spraying your dog in the face with water when they bark, shaking a can with a few rocks or pennies in it, or throwing it in your dog's direction when they're barking, pulling or dragging them away from whatever they're barking at, using a bark collar, and allowing the barking to continue sometimes. If this is you, don't worry. I've helped thousands of dog parents control their dog's barking. In this episode, I'll elaborate on these mistakes and why they're mistakes. Plus, I'll share with you the 2 steps I teach in my Rockstar Rover program that you can use to stop your dog from barking, no matter what they're barking at. Hi, I'm Amy from How to Speak Dog. I'm a canine behavior consultant and trainer, and founder of How to Speak Dog, where I help families living with dogs who struggle to listen learn how to teach their dogs the canine life skills that will improve their dog's listening skills, and stop all those feelings of embarrassment, overwhelm, frustration, and worry caused by their dog's bad behavior, without spending hours and hours training or using methods that just don't solve the everyday problems pet parents face today. Since 1983, I have transformed thousands of foster dogs, client dogs, and my own dogs with bad behavior into dogs who listen and respond reliably, no matter where they are or who is there. I'm here to help you transform your dog's behavior too. If you're new to the channel, welcome. And please be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the new free training episodes I put out here every Tuesday. Let's get started. Dogs bark for one main reason. They're trying to tell us something. It is one of the ways in which they're able to communicate with us, in addition to their body language. But if we don't understand what they're trying to say, it becomes impossible for us to respond appropriately so that they don't have to bark. However, what they're trying to communicate differs. Knowing what your dog is specifically barking about allows you to better understand what your dog is trying to say to you and to get you to do, like acknowledge that there's a visitor outside, or give them some comfort if they're worried, or give them some attention, things like that. So if you respond in a way that makes your dog feel safe and secure and meets their needs in the moment, your dog will no longer have a reason to bark. So instead of focusing on stopping the barking, focus on what your dog is trying to tell you that they need from you so that you can give it to them. Now let's get into the mistakes. Yelling at your dog is a mistake because they actually think you're joining in and you're agreeing with them that they should be barking, which makes them bark more. It's just like if you've ever been somewhere where you have more than one dog. It's usually one dog that starts the barking and then the others join in. If you yell loud enough, it may stop the barking momentarily, but they usually will go right back to it. Getting angry with your dog and punishing them for barking is a mistake because you're just teaching them to stop barking in your presence and to fear you. It can also escalate aggressive behavior because in some situations, barking is a warning. If the dog isn't allowed to give that warning, they'll escalate to the next step, which is snapping and lunging. This is why some people say their dog snapped or bit with no warning. It's because by using anger and punishment to stop the dog from barking, they took the dog's ability to warn away from them. Saying no to your dog is a mistake because just like any other words we use, it means nothing to your dog. Our words can come to mean something to our dogs, but only after we teach them what the word should mean to them. We say no so often that it is hard to make the word no particularly mean something specific to our dogs because they hear it in so many contexts, including ones that don't even involve them at all. The good news is, if we don't expect it to mean something to our dogs, then we can say it all we want without affecting their behavior. Using a spray bottle to spray your dog in the face to stop them from barking is a mistake because it's not very nice, and it can make your dog not want to interact with you anymore. How would you feel if every time you talk, someone sprayed you in the face with water? It would most likely make you stop talking, especially in that person's presence, but you would probably also avoid being around that person in the future. It may also make you not like that person as much anymore. So when your dog, who depends on you for everything they need to thrive and survive, is being sprayed in the face when they're trying to tell you something that they think you should know, they're not going to trust you anymore. And when your dog doesn't trust you, or loses trust in you, it manifests in other behaviors we don't like, such as not coming when called, running away, hiding, and more. Taking a soda can and putting in a few rocks or a few pennies and then shaking it when the dog is barking or throwing it in their direction when the dog is barking is a mistake because it's meant to startle the dog, which is not very nice. This method was popularized by a well-known dog training company many years ago. It does work to stop the barking, but at what cost? This is known as an intimidation tactic, which is similar to the effect the spray bottle has. You're basically scaring your dog into not barking, but again, only in the moment and only in your presence. It also teaches your dog to be afraid of you, and again, not trust you and not want to be near you as much. Pulling or dragging your dog away from whatever they're barking at is a mistake because it doesn't address what the dog is barking at. It also doesn't teach the dog to problem solve for themselves, look to you for support, or change the way they feel about the thing they're barking at. It only teaches them that when they bark, they'll be removed from the situation against their will. And yes, sometimes in an emergency when your dog is completely out of control, you do have to drag them away. But as a long-term solution, every time it happens is one of the worst things you can do. Using a bark collar is a mistake because it's another intimidation method. It works similar to the cans or the spray bottle in that it either vibrates, shocks the dog, or sprays citronella in their face every time they bark. All things designed to intimidate, startle, scare, or hurt your dog, but it only teaches them not to bark when they're wearing it. I've heard some people say that they don't have to use the bark collar anymore, they just have to put it on and it works. Or I've heard them say that they don't have to use the spray bottle anymore, they just have to pick it up. That's called suppression. It's not quite as damaging to your dog's trust in you as the other methods because they don't directly associate you with a bad experience. But the biggest problem is that they never know when it's going to happen, so they walk around on eggshells, so to speak, waiting to get startled, sprayed, scared, or shocked, and just for doing something to try to communicate and something that comes naturally to them. So just like the other intimidation methods, it suppresses their ability to communicate with you or anyone else, and it forces them to resort to escalated responses when a growl or a bark would do. Allowing the barking to continue sometimes is a mistake because practice makes perfect. Whether the behavior is one we like or one we don't, the more they do it, the better our dogs get at it. In many cases, it also gets naturally reinforced, like when the mail comes or someone walks past your front window. The person comes into the space where they're not supposed to be, the dog barks, and the person goes away. The dog thinks they did their job. They sent the intruder away. We all know that it wasn't really an intruder and that they were going to go away anyway, whether the dog barked or not. But the dog doesn't, and every time that works for your dog, they get the message that they're doing the right thing. So now that you know that all of these popular so-called fixes are mistakes, what can you do about the barking? Well, you'll never be able to stop it completely, nor should you want to. Because like I said at the beginning, your dog is barking to try to tell you something, and you should figure out what they're trying to say so that you can respond in a way that makes their barking unnecessary. I get it. In the moment, sometimes that's difficult to do. So here are the 2 steps I teach to get your dog to stop barking no matter what they're barking at. Step 1, use a positive interrupter to get the barking to stop, long enough for you to get to step 2. A positive interrupter. Not yelling, not startling, not scaring, not shocking, not intimidating, but positive. And step 2 is to give your dog something else to do or to think about after you've interrupted the barking. It really is that simple. Of course there are nuances, different interrupters, different directions, timing, etc., depending on what your dog is barking at, your current ability to address it, the environment, your dog's learning history, and more. But it can still be boiled down to those 2 steps. Positively interrupt the barking and give your dog some direction. Without even knowing any specifics of what interrupter to use or which directions to give, if you just experiment with some, I guarantee you will reduce your dog's barking immediately. And the more you repeat the steps that work, the less your dog will bark. And eventually, if you do this right, your dog will either stop barking in situations where they would have before, or stop when you ask them to. How cool would that be? So let's recap. We covered the most common fixes that most people use to try to get their dog to stop barking, and not only not teach the dog to stop barking long term, but can make the barking or other undesirable behaviors worse. And I introduced the 2 simple steps that, if taught and used correctly, will in some instances stop the barking for good, and in most cases keep it tolerable and manageable while also giving your dog the ability to communicate. If you want some help determining which interrupters and which directions will work best for your dog in your situation, I'll provide a link to my calendar below where you can book a free consultation with me to see if you and your dog are someone we can help in our Rockstar Rover programs. But if you're ready to get started right away, I suggest you check out the primer to my Power Principles framework, a 1-hour self-paced digital course called From Chaos to Calm, a guide to connecting powerfully with your dog. For a limited time, it's on sale for only $17. I will link it below too. As always, if you have questions, ask in the comments and I'll be happy to answer them. I've asked YouTube to recommend the next best video for you, which you can get to right here. I hope you found this training useful today. I put new training videos out here every Tuesday, so if you don't want to miss any episodes, remember to hit like and subscribe and turn on your notifications. That's it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you right back here next Tuesday for our next episode.